Hi everyone, I'm joined by Marty today and we're going to have a crack at changing the engine oil as well as the gearbox oil. So I've got all the parts laid out here. This was close to $200 just in serviceable parts, and there wasn't even an air filter in stock. So anytime you work on the car you'll need to jack it up. Now I'm not actually a big fan of these trolley jacks, and every time I use one of these little adapters on top of them, because pretty much every car I work on, aside from BMWs, have rails where you jack the car up from, and if you're using a jack like this on only one corner of the car, there's a high possibility that you can actually bend the chassis. Now because of that, I won't be using a trolley jack, I'll just be using the hand scissor jack. Right, so I drank about a litre of water after jacking the car up. Now you want to place your jack stands somewhere close to the jacking rail, but under a supportive piece of metal, I guess. So under this car there are a few plates, which you can see under the skylines there are also a few plates. Some cars you can put the jack stand under the lower wishbone if you've got wishbone suspension. And what you want to do now is reverse the jack. Is this the right way? No, that's the right way. Until it's captive on the jack stand, so that all slack is taken off the jacks and is put on the jack stand. Now the good thing about a lot of these Euros and American cars, gas struts. So up the bonnet goes, you don't need to do anything else. Now under the bonnet here, pretty much nothing you need to look at except for the filler cap here. Now I'll be filling the engine with 5.1 litres of 5W40 ACA C3. The next step is to get under the car and remove the lower splash tray. Normally this is an annoying job, but I've got just the tool for that. As for the top of the engine cover, very easy, no screws or anything, just pull it right off. So this is the engine oil coming out now. Next up is the gearbox oil. This is a 13mm bolt facing the chassis rail, so rather than get oil everywhere, I've left the bolt in. And now onto the gearbox oil. After a little while spent searching around, I finally found the filler grub screw. Oh, bloomin' hell, it's that hex shaped thing right at the middle of the screen there. Oh, that is so difficult to get to, pretty much just because the brake reservoir is right here, directly above it. And this is actually a right hand drive car, but instead of placing it on the driver's side, they've just got a line to the passenger side. So I managed to get to the filler plug using a 12mm socket connected to the standard extension bar that came with the Sid Chrome kit. On top of that is a universal joint connected to the new 250mm extension bar. The wrench handle just comes out up next to the brake reservoir. And when taking out the plug, I just used a very strong magnet, connected it to the lower bar as you see here, and lifted it out. Now time for the oil filter. So it looks like that is it, and I don't have an internal type filter, so I'll just skip it this time and fill the engine with 5 litres of oil. The gearbox drain plug pretty much mirrors the engine oil drain plug, however it is much more restricted due to its location right next to one of the lower control arms. And now it's time to continue with the fluids. So what we've got here is the drain plug and the filler plug for the gearbox. You'll notice that the filler plug is about half the length of the drain plug and doesn't seem to have the magnet that the drain plug does have. You'll also notice my tool over here, and I've removed one of the hoses from the gearbox oil packets, and it's now sitting in the filler hole. I'll show you how exactly in a few moments. So the first step is to coat the drain plug in Loctite and then install it under the car. Once you've done that and tighten it down to death, you can begin filling the gearbox with 75W full synthetic gearbox oil. So over here now we've got the old oil. It's in this bottle here for Total 75W, that was for my Peugeot. You can see that it's very dark and it's sitting just under 2 litres, about 1.8, which is somewhere close to recommended. I just filled the gearbox with 2 litres of oil, and we've got a little bit of residue from what was in the gearbox itself, looking very dark. By comparison, the new oil was almost clear. And I'm going to be honest here, I lost the footage where I drained the gearbox oil. So to find the bung, the grub screw, come down next to your front left wheel, find your lower control arm, which is this thing here, and it should be just inside that under the splash tray. And because of the lower control arms, you've only got about 5 centimeters or less to work with. And I'll show you a couple of the tools that I used to get in there. Over here we have the original 12mm socket piece. Over here we have an adapter for my through-loading toolkit. Now what I first attempted was slot the tool over first, the wrench, and have it sitting like this. Literally like this, because you've only got about 5 centimeters to work with. Now this didn't actually provide enough grip because it doesn't sit properly on the tool itself, so I had to abandon that idea. And then I came up with another brilliant idea to use a 12mm wrench. Now that's the exact same size as the socket itself, but you can actually slip it on and rotate and then pull back a bit and continue to undo the grub screw holding in the gear oil. On the forums online they recommended that you put a piece of blue tack onto the bolt head. I was having trouble with this, so I came up with another solution. So this involves getting under the car, and over here you can see the bottom of the brake reservoir through this gap. Just fit your arm right through there and feel around until you can feel the hole. And because of the short shifter, the gear changes became a lot more rougher, and that's why I wanted to change the gearbox fluid. Now that the fluid's all changed, the gear changes are very smooth, but you can still feel the roughness through the linkages. So once you have finished your oil change, you might find that there is still an oil warning light on your dashboard. This is driven by how many kilometers or miles have been traveled since the last service, and unfortunately you can't reset it using the built-in menu. But I did find a method for resetting it online. You insert the key into the ignition, switch it to the on position, and then you press and hold the accelerator pedal. While holding, you press the brake pedal 6 or 7 times depending on your car, and continue holding the accelerator for 30 to 60 seconds depending on your vehicle. And once you have completed this process, the engine oil change light should disappear.